Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Nicholas.
Nicholas who?
Nicholas girls shouldn't climb trees.
Hello, me. Hello, me. How's it going? How are you?
Hello, mate. Well, we say we're all right, don't we? We normally do. But, there's not much point, is there? Because we're not, are we? We're not all right. We're all suffering.
What do you mean?
Oh, hang on a minute. I'm just going to... one sec.
Hang on. Just so the listeners know, Horace has upped his game. It looks like he's hoeing into a Pellegrino, mate. So you're not on the 7-Ups this time.
No, are we allowed to advertise brands? I guess 7-Up is a brand, isn't it? Or is 7-Up a brand? I thought that was a drink. 7-Up's made by Coca-Cola, I think. Anyway, who cares? This is a San Pellegrino Aranciata Rossa Italian orange. It's nice. It's not quite as gassy as 7-Up, believe it or not.
Yeah, give it time, pal. Give it time. When my arm's aching, once I've had to do about 164 burp edits like last time.
We'll see what happens, won't we?
Brilliant. How are you?
Well, I'm all right. I've spent a lot of time in my car over the last since the last time we did one of these chats.
Right.
So I've been doing a lot of listening to things and listening to the radio and whatnot, and with what's going on around the world, and now everything's shit, which it's not probably not going to get much better. Anyway, so hang on. There you go. See, there is one. There is one in there. I fished it out from that. That came from the bowels of hell, everyone. That's
the bowels of egg.
Brilliant. So I was listening to the radio yesterday. I'll tell you one thing that really, really cheeses me off, which is radio DJs now spending time playing a little snippet of the song they're going to play later in the show, and spend like 20 minutes listing all the things they're actually going to play over the next 3 hours and playing a little snippet of them. Have you heard that?
Well, I'm not a huge radio fan, so no, not really.
I am a huge radio fan because I think there's something nice and warm about listening to radio. And it used to, when you're not actually, not so much with like sort of the art. I listened to the Archers yesterday as well. What a pile of shit that is. I mean, I can't believe that's still going. That absolutely horrendous. All it was about yesterday was it said, the Archers, Laura has a brainwave. I mean, that's really going to make you want to listen to it, isn't it?
I thought you were going to say Laura had a brain transplant. That might have been interesting.
No, it wasn't as exciting as that. Although arguably that wouldn't be as good on radio. But yeah, she had a brainwave. That was the tagline to get you to listen to it. I imagine they packed a load of information into that show with that Laura has a brainwave or whatever it was. Anyway. So that's one thing that really gets on my nerves is the current DJs spending time advertising what songs they're going to play later in their show. Like I say, coming up on the show later, Ellie Goulding, right? Oh, I ate her, right? She's horrible. Do you know her?
Yeah, I've heard of her.
Oh, she's had loads of work done and looks like a.
Why does this annoy you anyway? Does it ruin the surprise of the song?
Oh, it just does. It's lazy radio, isn't it? Why advertise you're going to play a song later? Why not just fucking play it? Why not just play the song?
It's a good point.
Why did they have to advertise what song they're going to play? And coming up later, although they did play a song that I feel is very underrated, which is 1973 by James Blunt, which I know people are going to go, James Blunt, and he's famous for You're Beautiful, which is terrible, and Goodbye My Lover, which is equally as terrible.
He is actually hilarious, though.
I know he's hilarious, and he plays with the world on the internet, and he says all sorts of things back to people, like they go, you're a miserable prick, and he goes, yeah, but I'm a miserable prick that hasn't got a mortgage and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, he's got a point.
Exactly, that's my point.
But 1973 by James Blunt is a really underrated song. And yesterday afternoon on the radio, whoever was DJing, and I know it was, and I shan't say anything horrible about him because he's horrible enough as it is. He doesn't need me to tell anyone. So he was telling everybody how 1973 is on his debut album, Back to Bedlam, and it isn't. It's on his second album, All the Lost Souls, and even I knew that. And I was sitting in the car going, I'm not having that.
See, there we go. There is more evidence of the encyclopedic, photographic, musical cataloguing memory that is you. And I have to pay you a compliment, actually, because on last episode 7, you were sort of guessing the years of all these albums that we were talking about, the years they came out. And you were beating yourself up because you hadn't researched it, because you hadn't had time, because you were busy at work, and you were annoyed at yourself that you might have got it wrong. And you know what? Props to you, Roger the Horace. I have to give you props, because I went away and checked. Mate, all of your information was correct. So there you are. Your reputation, it has remained intact.
Thanks. I do have a plethora of useless information about things. But I'll tell you what, there's a show on the TV that I sometimes look at, which is Popmaster TV with Ken Bruce. If you've ever seen Ken Bruce these days, he is the spitting image of Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, who was the guy in the Muppets.
I remember
He
him.
used to do all the science experiments with Beaker. You remember him?
Yeah.
Remember how wasn't Shitlegs Beaker? He used to look like we used to say he looked like Beaker, didn't we?
Yeah, he changed. I think momentarily for a few months he changed his Facebook profile picture to Beaker from the Muppets. Yeah,
he did that. You're quite right. That's where I've got the connection. But Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, which I remember that. I don't know why I remember that.
He's the little green bloke with a round face with no eyes and glasses, isn't he?
And he's called Honeydew because he's got a head like a fucking melon. Yeah. And he's got round glasses and he's got no eyes.
Yeah.
So he's got absolutely no eyes whatsoever behind his glasses. And if you look at Ken Bruce at the moment on Popmaster TV, he looks exactly the same as Dr. Bunsen Honeydew because his eyes are like slits and you can't see anything. It's really, really weird. But that show is absolutely jam-packed full of like pop facts and God knows what else because it used to be on Radio 2 and then Ken Bruce got sacked. And he got sacked and then he ended up on the TV with Popmaster because I think he copyrighted it and took it with him. So that was good for him. But it's a really good show if you want to bone up on musical knowledge. And there's always some blinking person on it that knows absolutely everything. So even, and I thought I knew a lot, but Christ, people don't half know a lot of stuff. So, yeah. Sorry, that's, what's that? That's 10 minutes down a Carsey that you'll never get back. Never mind.
Well, tell me about these gigs you've been to, because I know you said you've been to quite a few gigs and you didn't you wear your new jacket?
Oh, yeah. So I went to see House of Protection at Camden Underworld. That was a week and a half ago. And that is Eric and Stephen, who used to be in the Fever 333, which was the offshoot band from Let Live. And they've quit Fever 333 and sort of started their own version of it. But it's arguably it's a bit better. And it's the guy from the Chariot playing guitar and singing and leaping about and floating himself, or doing crowd surfing and stage diving and whatnot all around the room. And it's Eric and Protter, who's the drummer from Night Versus, who I'm sure you're familiar with him. He does all somersaults and things like that, and plays upside down, and plays drums in Welsh and anything that.
What does that mean? Playing drums in Welsh?
Well, if anyone could play drums in Welsh, it would be him. So if you ever get the chance to see him playing drums, like sort of close up, like I'm very lucky. I've had the chance to see him play at some very small venues, sometimes where I've actually stood next to him playing. If you ever want to go and see someone play that will make you go home and want to give up playing drums, he's the one. And he's a lovely chap, and he'll never listen to this because I
feel like that quite regularly when I go to shows nowadays, to be fair. The talent pool is quite outrageous.
He's a seriously talented individual, and he'll never listen to this, but I'm giving him a shout out anyway. He very kindly invited me up to watch them play. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They went absolutely berserk. They had beach balls. So halfway through the set, they pushed a load of beach balls out all over the crowd, which I know it sounds.
That sounds brilliant fun, to be fair.
The thing is, it was, and it created an atmosphere. So of course, people are then bouncing them off each other's heads.
That sounds like it could have turned into a sort of an adult version of soft play. when you fuzz your kids around in a big whole bucket of those rubber balls.
It sort of did, and he goes and he got a chair and he stood in the middle of the crowd in a bit of it and sort of interacted with everyone. And what they try and do is they try and bring sort of the whole venue together as a unit, and they give prizes out for the most. I know it's stupid, isn't it? But they give out things to people that do the most stage diving and get on the stage and go absolutely berserk. And there were plenty of people doing that, and it was really good. But I've got a new jacket. Which I thought would be nice to wear up to London. And fear not, it made it back. But I visited the retail outlet in Swindon about 6 months ago, and there's a Ralph Lauren shop in there. Is it Lauren or Lauren? Ralph Lauren? I don't know, whatever it is. And half of the shop's on sale and half the shop isn't. And you go into the half that's not on sale and promptly go into the half that's on sale because the side that isn't on sale is 4 times the price of the side that is. So in the sale shop, they had some really nice Ralph Lauren. Is it Lauren or Lauren? Do you not know?
I don't know, mate.
I thought you would know, being a dedicated follower of fashion.
I'm clearly not. I just wear what fits, bearing in mind I'm 9'7". I don't have much choice, really.
Anyway, I got a lovely Ralph Lauren jacket in there for not well, it was still expensive, but it wasn't an enormous amount of money. But it's an army style one, with like the patch on the patch on the arms and stuff. Like an army green sort of army style jacket.
Do you mean like a bomber jacket?
No, well, it's longer than that. It's got big pockets. It's really practical. It's a really nice jacket, really nice fit, really comfy. Only when I put it on, went up to London and then saw myself in the picture. Oh, I thought I was the bee's knees going up there, looking in all the shop windows as I was going along. Oh, look at me in my new jacket. And then when I looked at all the photos when we came back, I realised that I looked like Rambo from First Blood. So it's that sort of jacket. When he's walking about and the sheriff comes down in the car and goes, "We don't want drifters. We don't want drifters in this town, mate. You need to sling your hook." Do you know what I mean?
A way more decrepit, slightly rotund Rambo in the house.
But this was more like Rambo or something out of the, maybe Hannibal out of the A-Team, sort of that sort of slight look. It wasn't a good look, mate. I looked like a complete prick in the pictures that I took. I was really upset with myself. So I'm not wearing it again. Not up to London, but it is a lovely jacket. If anyone wants it or wants to buy it off me, feel free.
Fair enough. What other bands did you see?
I saw Cherubs and Rid of Me, and I saw a band called Spinning. Oh God, no, hang on, Spin a Fool. That was the night before last in the Jericho Tavern in Oxford, and they're all pretty good. Cherubs have been a band for about 45 years. They're like a sort of noise band. They're a bit like the Melvins. You know the Melvins?
Yeah.
They're kind of like that. They're really good. But the singer's vocal style isn't for everybody. Let's just say that. And he tends to sort of yelp quite a lot and sort of squeal or make funny faces. But when they hit their stride, they're very good. And that was a lot of fun. But I that was in Oxford. But I made the mistake of going trying to buy drinks at the bar in Oxford, as I've done a few places of late. And I've had to come home this morning and remortgage my house because two drinks, two pints of IPA in the Jericho Tavern in Oxford was nearly just under £14.
Jesus H. Christ.
I know, and I know in London it's mental, but that's Oxford, so it's like, and a lot of people now won't be able to, they'll stop going, so it'll kill it off. Yeah. And once they do what they're going to do, that's it. How high has it got to be before people stop buying drinks? But the thing is, if you go to London and go to the O2, any of those gigs that I've been to up there, the bars are rammed and people are paying £10.80 for a pint of Stella and quite happily paying it.
Do you know what it is?
So all the while people do, they're going to charge it, aren't they?
It's a load of old.
So when I came back from Camden, I'd parked my car at Reading Station, which was horrendous because when it's £3 or something an hour, and then when you go over 4 hours, it jumps up to 22 quid. So I was up there for 4 hours and 5 minutes. I know, it's fucking outrageous. And I had to pay £22 for the car park. So the whole night cost me about 750 quid. So it was lovely.
Welcome to Backstage Pass, the podcast which pulls back the curtain on the music industry with banter, comedy, and essentially two blokes having a laugh. With myself, James Maverick, and my good friend, Rob Newson, otherwise known as Roger the Horace.
I wanted to do a shout out to a friend of mine, Emma Barrett, who does a show on Total Rock Radio, which is called. I nearly had trouble with that then. Barnett's Brutal Brunch Live. There you go. And if you go to totalrock.com /shows, she's on there /Barnett's -brutal -brunch. Not the word hyphen, by the way, an actual hyphen.
You almost announced Emma Barnett's rock show as just then.
She does a show on there. She's going to advertise us on there. So she's going to shout us out on there.
Bless her.
And she wanted me to associate a song with the show, but I don't know whether I'm of a suitable stature to suggest a song that would capture this entire thing that we do, unless you've got any ideas.
Well, I think we may have summed it up with a particular choice in episode 7 last time round, Horace. The Chicken Song by Spitting Image. That's fucking dreadful, and that sums up our bollocks podcast, doesn't it?
I'm so sorry. She's going to play it on her show. I don't think she'll play that though. That or the B-side. I don't think she's going to play anything like that. But anyway,
well, it's got to be a song by Tears for Fears.
Well, it's okay. We'll have a think about that and come back to it.
Yeah.
How are you, mate?
How am I? Well, apart from being absolutely freezing cold, I'm all right. My boiler's decided to explode. It does it most years when it gets cold. All I can say is, you know the episode in Fawlty Towers called A Touch of Class with Lord Melbury, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You remember at the end when they're chasing the confidence trickster who's pretending to be Lord Melbury, and he keeps running round the desk where Basil's working.
Yes.
And every now and again, Basil jumps up and keeps shouting, "You bastard!" at him as he's walking past. That's what I feel like doing to my boiler at the moment.
I remember that scene very well, yeah. "How are you, Lord Melbury? How are you, me old mate?" And he slaps him in the face.
Yeah.
Sorry,
My boiler is such a selfish bastard, it's unbelievable. Not only is it blown up, but I've got 2 leaks coming from my ceiling now, which is annoying me. But it doesn't matter, because I cheered myself up. I actually went to a gig a few weeks ago. Mate, I've got to big him up. I went to see North Lane at the Electric Ballroom.
Okay, yeah.
I had best seat in the house on the balcony, right in front of the band, right in the middle. It was awesome. Mate, that band are extraordinary. Marcus Bridge, the vocalist, he's only a little bloke, but he's got an amazing voice, and his range is insane. And I'm a bit obsessed with John Daly, the guitarist and the main songwriter. I don't know if you've seen him live, but he uses that Ableton Push 3, that desktop device that runs from Ableton, and he basically uses it as a sampler. So North Lane are one of those Australian heavy metal bands. They incorporate a lot of synths into their music. There's a lot of modern metal bands now that incorporate synths, but it's something about North Lane that do it really well.
Yeah.
And he does it all live using Ableton Push 3, which is amazing to watch. But you can tell they're like a seasoned, well-oiled machine, because at one point, John had to use both his hands on the Ableton Push because he was doing a complicated bit of sequencing. And I realised at this point on stage, he didn't have a guitar on his back, because he sort of does both. You know, he'll switch to the guitar quick and then he'll be using Ableton Push.
Yeah.
And at one point, he just finishes this bit of sampling, and as he's turning round, this stagehand dressed all in black, so you can hardly notice him, John Daly puts his arms out, and this bloke just slipped his guitar onto his back, and then he got back and started playing his guitar parts just in time.
Amazing.
Just amazing to watch. They're such a brilliant band. And
I think I've seen him, you know. I think I've seen him.
Didn't you see him supporting Sleep Token?
Yeah, I did see him support Sleep Token. You're right, because he does about 19 things all at the same time, doesn't he?
That's right. They're absolutely brilliant. And the guitar sound was fucking monstrous, and it nearly made me wet myself. Oh, it was absolutely obsessed.
It was good. He looked. That thing is that they're one of these bands that they're effortlessly good. With that, I mean, it doesn't even look like he's putting the work in, does it? When you watch him,
they're absolutely brilliant.
I'm sorry. He looked like you remember on Top of the Pops in the old days when they used to have BBC micros all around the Pet Shop Boys and things in the background. he looked like a modern version of that when I saw them play live, and they were very good actually. Yeah, they were very, very talented.
He had this bit of kit over the side of his face, like he looked like he had one Terminator eye, like a laser. It's absolutely brilliant. They're so awesome. The other thing that happened the other day, I was all right, except my poor son Isaac nearly wasn't. So I was driving up a hill, right, behind this lorry, and this lorry had it was this big old jalopy lorry. It had a big tarpaulin over the back of it. Driving along, 60 miles an hour, dual carriageway, fucking great rock just flipped off the back of the lorry and went crack. Straight in front on the windscreen, straight in front of Isaac's face, poor little
Jesus
kid.
Christ.
And it left a massive crack there. So I thought, oh, brilliant, I'll have to go and get that repaired. So I made an appointment and I fetched up to Autoglass. Now, when I went up to the reception desk, they said a mechanic was going to have to come round from the back and meet me by my car to have a look at my windscreen, right? So me and Isaac are there just waiting. Mate, I didn't know where to look, and neither did Isaac, because I swear to God, The mechanic had teeth like a witch doctor's necklace. I've never seen anything like it in all my life. It was absolutely rancid. It was so weird. I didn't know what to do. At one point, I looked at Isaac and I thought, Christ, he's going to light a fire, put on a loincloth and start doing some incantation and chanting in a minute to fix my windscreen. It was massively bizarre and really weird. I didn't know what to do. Poor bloke.
Are you allowed to say that? Are you?
Well, I just did.
He just has, everybody. Never mind that. Brilliant.
Right, Horace, we need to talk about who's contacted us again, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's been an old face that's contacted us on Instagram that you're aware of. And I'm going to have to hand over to you about this person because a lovely chap called Simon Moon left us a really nice message on Instagram. And it's my understanding that he used to play in a band called Mind Juice, right? Now, he knows who I am. And if Simon Moon's listening to this, I have to hold my hand up and apologise so profusely. Because as we all know on this pod, I really lay into you about your hilarious escapades under the influence of alcohol. I am equally as guilty because back in the day, if not more so. Yeah, well, there's a slight difference, though. When you got drunk, it always 100% resulted in hilarity, which is why I like sharing your stories. But my point is, back in the day, I was a party animal. So my memory is impaired because of all the boozing that we did during those years. And if I did ever do a gig with Mind Juice, which I think I might have done in my old band Matter, I probably met Simon Moon, but I'm ever so sorry, Simon. I remember your name, but I can't picture you as a person, so I'm ever so sorry. But I'm just going to hand over to you, Horace, because you do know who this gentleman is, don't you?
I think. So, Mind Juice were a label mates of ours when we used to play, and I first saw Mind Juice.
When you say ours, you mean Landmine Spring?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Landmine Spring, yeah. We were on the same label as Mind Juice. They were, they played at the, I want to say somewhere like the Golden Martlet in Hellingly for some reason. That's a place that sticks out in my brain. And one of the guys in the band, I still talk to him occasionally, Leon. He was the drummer in Mind Juice. He's a guitarist now and singer, and he's got a project that he does called Warm Rain, which is all one word. And it's prog type Pink Floyd stuff. It's really good. He's a very nice chap. I spoke to him the other day. Simon Moon was known as Moon.
Did he have a habit of mooning everyone or something, or what?
I don't think he mooned anybody. I don't remember why he was called Moon other than his surname being Moon. Anyway, he was also known as Deadlord for some reason. He wasn't in Mind Juice when I first saw them, and I don't even think he was in the band when they got signed. I think he was.
What's that story about Scotland?
So we played a tour. Bands didn't play all the shows. There was a schedule, and the Mind Juice only played certain shows on the tour. And one of the shows on the tour was, I want to say, Ivory Blacks, which is in Glasgow. I'm pretty sure it was Ivory Blacks. And we played up there. And Mind Juice had played like about 3 shows on that tour, all spread out across different venues and different dates. And when we got to Ivory Blacks, they weren't on that day's schedule. And it was quite clearly marked on the flyer that they weren't playing. And when we got there, they were there. So we thought...
Where are they driven from?
Well, I think, if I remember rightly, somewhere like Horsham, which is like the bottom of England, all the way up to... They'd driven a bloody long way. I know that much. Because back then, driving from where we were in Brighton to Glasgow is not, I think... How far is that? That's got to be about 270 miles, I think, Brighton to Glasgow, as the crow flies. And that is a hell of a drive, and I know, because I've done it plenty of times. And they drove all the way up to Glasgow to play this show.
270 miles? It's going to be more than that, mate.
Is it more than that? Is it? Hang on a minute. Is it? How far is it then from Glasgow from Brighton to Glasgow? Brighton to London's about 90 miles, isn't it? Or is it 50? I can never get it right.
463 miles up the M6, 8 hours, 15 minutes.
Mate, my brain, I'm the singing, like someone said on the TV last night, like Bob Dylan, someone referred to him as the singing walnut, which I thought was hilarious.
That's because you fried your brain with a million Ginsters breakfast bars, Pellegrinos and 7-Up, mate. Your brain's full of aspartame, that's why.
You're quite right. Not to mention other things. But yeah, they drove all the way to Glasgow to play a show that they weren't scheduled to play on.
Bless him.
So that didn't go down very well. And and I remember they had a different singer then. They used to be a 3-piece when I first met them, but they decided to get another guitarist, I think, and a singer, a guy called Darren. And when they got to the show, when we got there, they weren't on the bill to play. So we were like, it's very lovely that you've come along to watch us on come 470 or whatever it was miles to watch us, but you're not on this show. And then they looked at the thing and they weren't. They were like, oh, we're not.
So really nice to hear from Simon Moon, even though I can't recollect him very well. Really nice of him to message in. And really nice to reminisce about Mind You, say, Rob.
Yeah, very nice chat. And he's in America somewhere, I think.
So I do believe, Roger the Horace, it's now time for another edition of...
The Richard Marx News at 10. With Roger the Horace.
So, Horace, what is the crack? You've got some Richard Marx news then?
Well, I was looking at Richard Marx's Instagram, and he was telling us that he was recorded in, I think it was it the record plant or somewhere like that? I think that's LA, isn't it? And he was told that Prince was going to turn up, and he was recorded in the same place. And somebody said to him, "You're not allowed to talk to Prince. You're not allowed to look at him."
Wow.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
What, he was that sort of revered and protected as an artist, but even the Richard Marx wasn't allowed to say anything to him?
See, I think Prince is just, he had a lot of fun with it, I think, but Prince did. Because you hear stories from some people saying he asks, I've seen him speak to Jimmy Fallon about when he invited him to play ping pong with him at like 2 a.m. in the morning somewhere in America. He was told not to look at Prince, and he said he was outside, and Prince turned up in his purple car and came up and said to him, "Hey, Richard," and he had a conversation with Prince.
So Prince was really nice, was he?
Yeah. So somebody at some point told him, don't talk to Prince, he'll get offended. And Prince probably tells people to do that all the time. Don't tell everyone no one to talk to me.
So he can be a surprisingly nice celebrity.
Yeah. And then everyone gets a story out of it. And then everyone thinks, oh, he's probably going to turn up and be an absolute twat. But he turned up and he was very nice.
Brilliant. Well, as luck would have it, Horace, I've also got a Richard Marx story from the same Instagram account.
Oh,
a bit like last episode. So, again, it's another RO story, mate. Another story from Repeat Offender. It regards the first track on that opus, Nothing You Can Do About It. And he wrote this song, apparently, about a record producer called David Foster, because Richard Marx started off as a session musician and he used to write songs for other artists. So he had a relationship in this studio with this dude called David Foster. And I've looked at his credits and it's outrageous. You know, he's got a smorgasbord of ultimate artists that he's worked with, established pop artists, pop and rock artists. And he turned around to Richard Marx one day and apparently he said, "You're never going to make it as a singer, as an artist." He said, "You might make it as like a session musician or a backup artist, but you'll never make it. You haven't got the stuff. You're just not good enough."
Yeah.
And then Richard Marx just stops and looks at the camera and just sort of goes, "Know what I'm saying?" And he said something like, "Don't let the haters hate on you. Just do it and go for your dreams." And I thought that was really sweet because if he had given up, I maintain about the fact we wouldn't have been given those first two glorious records, and Repeat Offender in particular, and then you and I wouldn't be going ape about them. So fair play to him. He didn't give up, mate. There you go, kids. Stick to your guns and don't give up, said by the Mr. Richard Marx.
Exactly. And there's nothing they can do about it.
Damn straight. And I bet David Foster feels like a right dill knot now, doesn't he? Yeah, Horace, I've got to chime in. Something brilliant happened this morning. The old head honcho from Resonance Logistics, Bobby Dazzler himself, gave me a FaceTime call this morning. And we were talking about some audio business. And I've got to tell you, I was slagging off my broadband service because it's absolutely the pits. It's such a joke. It's maybe the listeners don't know. It is absolutely incredible and pretty incredulously amazing that we've been able to do any podcast, produce anything in the way of a podcast.
Yeah, don't I know it?
People don't realise the horrendous issues we've had with my internet and trying to finish a Zoom call. It's unbelievable. I feel like smashing the place up. And it's not me being a 10 pence lemon either. I'm getting the maximum I can get from my local exchange, and I'm not in a fibre area.
It's like the sieve of broadbands, isn't it? Your connection when
Yeah, my broadband is basically reminiscent of a sieve with a large cavernous hole in the bottom. Yeah.
you remember on It's a Knockout in the 70s when somebody would have to carry some water down a salt course with a sieve and get to the end before it all came out of the sieve. That's your broadband.
Yeah, it is the absolute pits. Anyway, I was having a moan-up to Bobby Dazzler about it, and he was going, "Yeah, well, I've got 700 meg coming down the pipe at my palace, so I'm a right man." And I was moaning because I was massively jealous of his epic Bobby Dazzler style signet ring broadband, right? And his retort to that was, "Don't worry about it, man. Keep doing your own productions, man, your audio productions, because you never know. You keep going, and one day you'll have your own pylon in your back garden before long, man." My own broadband pylon in my back garden. He's
You
so
imagine that
hilarious.
they put a bloody broadband mast in your garden.
Yeah.
It'd probably be the worst signal. Ironically, it'd probably make it worse.
But I can't stop thinking about that. I love getting calls from Bobby Dazzler because they're always hilarious. Do you remember back in the day, like in our early 20s, when Bobby Dazzler used to phone up back in the day with the lure of industry blags and goodies and bits and pieces, man? I used to love those phone calls. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I remember when we used to, it used to be about, what was it? It'd be about like 10 to 8 on a Saturday morning.
Hold on.
Hang on. Who's that?
That is seriously bizarre. No one's called my landline in about 4 years. What's going on? Hello?
I've got a few bits and pieces for you, man.
Oh, dear. Oh, Jesus, I'm so sorry.
Fuck's sake, Rob. Can you just do me one favour? Apart from wafting the rich egg away from my vicinity, because I'm sure it comes down the pipe of the internet into
Comes
my
down
lounge.
the Ethernet, doesn't it?
Yeah, it comes down the eggy Ethernet, right? Please assure me you will never get a job as a waiter, because I'm pretty sure that if you did, it would go something a bit like this.
I'm terribly sorry to keep you waiting, sir. Could I take your order?
Well, I have to say, my wife and I are very disappointed.
Yes.
We've never had to wait this long before.
Yes.
I'm terribly sorry, but unfortunately one of our chefs has recently exploded.
Well, that just sounds like an excuse. I mean, don't you have reserve chefs on board?
No, it's really not an excuse. He really did go up like a rocket.
Well, let's draw a line under it this time.
That's very kind of you, sir.
Let's come with our meal. Now,
Of course, sir.
right, my wife would like to try the Windsor soup.
Oh, I love the Windsor, dear.
And I would like the crab sartare.
Sartare,
We'd like to try the green salad.
green salad,
The foie gras.
foie gras.
Bottle of Chianti.
Oh, that'd be lovely, darling.
1942.
Excellent choice, sir. Oh, pardon me.
Oh, my days, young man.
You just break wind, boy.
I'm terribly sorry. I'd rather a large lunch, and I did smoke a cigar last night.
That reeks of rich egg. I think I'm going to be sick.
What the devil are you playing at, boy, you ignoramus?
No,
Get
no,
your
please, sir.
manager here this
No.
instant.
No, not the manager, sir. No, please, not the manager. No. I'm terribly sorry, sir. £20? Foot massage?
I beg your pardon?
Free use of my caravan on the south coast? Would that be any benefit of
I've
you?
never known such incidents in all my days, and I've been on safari. Get your manager here right this instant. I've never been in such a ridiculous restaurant in all my days.
Right, Horace, you'll never guess what time it is.
He's a lemon, ask Horace.
So, Roger the Horace. For this episode's Ask Horace, like I said earlier in the episode, I've had a little chat with Mr. Bobby Dazzler this morning, and he's got a question for you. And he says, do you remember in the Landmine Spring days when he played drums in the band, do you remember the band playing a festival in Bristol and when you stayed at the promoter's house?
Yes, I do remember that.
Now, I don't know this story, so I'm waiting here with bated breath.
So I think if I remember rightly, it was our first gig that wasn't in our hometown. It was the first gig we played out of town. Again, I'm doing this from memory. I'm pretty sure I got the flyer somewhere. It was a venue, I think, called the Green Bank, which was in Bristol, which was a pub, and we played like on about a 3 or 4 band bill. I want to say one of the bands was Earth Tone 9, but I can't be sure if that's right. I could be wrong about that. One of the bands was definitely Discarnate or something from London, who'd signed to a major label, because the drummer used to wear big black leather gloves and looked like an absolute... Well, he looked like he was going to go and murder somebody after he played. So, and he had... I'm sure he had like a cage, like... back in the 90s, drum cages got big for a bit, didn't they?
You mean a rack?
Did you... Sorry, yeah, like a rack that went over the head, over the top as well.
Yeah.
Did you have one of those?
No. They were too annoying because actually, in the early days, I had a rack when I was in Matter. But then if you fetched up and you were a support band to a lot of bigger bands and everyone shared the drum kit, you had a problem. So I got rid of the rack in the end because it was just pointless.
Yeah, there was them, and there was another band called, I think, Age of Ruin. Do you remember them?
I remember Age of Ruin, yeah.
And they used to have a song called something about a video. Was that them? I'm sure that was them. And he used to smash a video recorder up on stage with a mallet. It was quite funny. I don't think they played that show, but the drummer in that band had a cage, and every time we used to see their name on the bill, like as you just said, we always used to think, oh, for God's sake, he's going to turn up with his cage.
Massive rack.
He's going to have to spend 4 hours building it, and then, of course, when they're not on the stage, it's got to go somewhere else in the venue, so that's half the crowd filled up before you've even done anything.
Which is the exact reason why I got rid of mine.
Mate, he had about 900 cymbals. Anyway, so...
Back in the day, if you turned up to a venue and you pulled a rack out the back of your transit van, everyone hated you immediately. There's no point.
Everyone hated you, and everyone was like, oh... Like you said, back in the day when nobody would... nobody back in the... hang on. Oh, fucking hell. Sorry. I've upset myself. Oh, dear.
If you don't even like it, that must be savage.
I'm going to have to check that came out of the right end. Wait a minute. Yeah, we're all right.
I don't know what it is about you. It's like whenever... I don't think the listeners know, but whenever Horace lets one go, it ends up smelling like someone needs to put the kitchen bin out. It's absolutely savage.
Yeah. You're right. It is. So we
egg down the Ethernet.
We played this festival. We played this all day. It wasn't an all day. It was like a lot of band bill at this Green Bank place. And if I remember rightly, there wasn't that many people there either. The promoter was a lady, and I can't remember what her name is. I can see her. She's got blonde hair. Wendy was her name. That's her name, Wendy.
Wendy Dillnot, if she let you lot stay.
Wendy House. That was her name. No, that's not her name.
That's so bad. That's really tickled me, that. Wendy House. You fucking Dillnot. That's hilarious.
It wasn't Wendy House. It was Wendy something. She had like a promotions company. She used to put gigs on in Bristol. She was something to do with that band One Dice. Do you remember One Dice?
Yes, I do, yeah.
She was something to do with them. I think she was managing them or something, because I'm sure they played or they were there or something like that.
What's the hilarity about when you stayed at her house, though?
Yeah, so we played the show, and then we had to stay in the venue till about 2 o'clock in the morning, because I don't think the headlining band, which I'm pretty sure was Earth Tone 9, played till about midnight. So, when you've played at 8 o'clock and you're sitting around and you've had enough and you want to go then, and we had to wait till midnight to go back to her house because she was there with all of her entourage in the venue.
Did you have 1,000 sherbets, or were you driving?
No, I don't think we had 1,000 sherbets, but I think I think that we parked our car at her house, and I'd walked back down. We'd loaded in, and I'd walked back down the venue or something like that.
My red alert carnage flag is waving here.
Yeah, I can hear it waving from here. So I imagine it is. But it definitely wasn't red alert carnage that night, because I remember the whole story. If it had been, it wouldn't have gone the way it went, which was, long story short is, we wanted to go to sleep by about midnight. Really, we were very desperate to go to sleep. We'd driven all the way to Bristol, which then was a long way. It's not anymore, obviously, but it was then. So she agreed we could stay in her house, and we were going to sleep in her lounge, which we did. But we couldn't go back to her house because she wanted to take us back there when she was finished being down there. But in the end, we got so fed up, we asked if we could go back to her house. I think somebody came back with us to let us in. We went back to her house. We went into the lounge, and she's got one of those houses. You go in the front door, and then there's a big long passage to the stairs. It's one of those old 3-floor sort of Victorian type houses.
Really narrow and tall, you mean?
Yeah. Narrow, tall hallway. And then the lounge is the first door on the right-hand side. So the lounge is independent. So when you come in the front door, you don't come in the lounge, is the point. You come in a passageway, and the lounge is separate. So she put us all in the lounge. We went to sleep, and we were all completely asleep. And then this is just after midnight, I think. And then about 2 o'clock in the morning, she came back from the pub with all of the pub. all the people that were still in the pub at the time when the pub finished, the venue, she came back to the house with all of the people in the pub. And you can imagine this. So we're in an old lounge. It's pitch dark. We're all in sleeping bags on sofas on the floor, and we're all asleep. I expect people were complaining about my snoring like they always used to do, I'm sure, or throwing shoes or items of similar weight.
Well, maybe the listeners would like to know that people didn't complain for no reason. And when I measured your snoring once with my audio engineer's decibel meter, it was as loud as a pneumatic drill. So there you are.
It's horrendous, my snoring, but I do have it under control these days, as you've experienced, because I have a CPAP machine which keeps that under control. But I was officially diagnosed with sleep apnea, which is not good and makes you sound like an old broken sink when you're sleeping.
But fair play to you for sorting it out.
But yeah, it's a shame I didn't have that when we were on tour. Else people would have been able to get a decent night's sleep. But you can imagine, we were all in this room anyway, so it's pitch dark, we're all asleep. Then all of a sudden at 2 a.m, I think there was about 5 of them, all came in the front door, all obviously wanting to continue the festivities of the evening onward. They came bursting into the lounge, put the light on in the lounge, and switched on the stereo. So that was a lot of fun. I imagine the neighbours loved that. But being woken up that rapidly by that happening was actually horrendous. And again, if I'm remembering it correctly, I think somebody made a comment, and Mr. B. Dazzler jumped out of his sleeping bag or off the sofa or where he was, and promptly grabbed that person by the throat and put them up the wall.
I didn't know that was coming.
Which was absolutely hilarious. There was a huge row which ensued. I mean, to be fair, it was her house, but I would have said don't go in the lounge and just gone in another room, and I think we'd have probably got away with it. But they all came bursting into the lounge.
But when you're beside yourself with tiredness when you're on tour, it is the worst, isn't it? When you're so tired.
It was one of the worst experiences we've ever had, and we had a huge argument. And we were basically we left the house rather quickly, and I remember having to drive home about 4 a.m. in the morning with everybody, and it wasn't a nice end to the evening. And again, I don't think there were that many people at the show, and I think we got paid like £7 or something like that for it.
Maybe Dazzler should have phoned up Wendy House.
Oh, Wendy House, right? Okay, yeah,
and offered her a few bits and pieces, man, to smooth over the argument. Here's something I haven't asked you for a while, Horace. How's that mate of yours, Barry? Old Barry Garlow.
Barry Garlow, yeah. Well, short of playing piano in Take That, which he's stopped doing. So he has done something really stupid of late, which is we were talking about things you should never hoover up. Now, I don't know whether...
Who was? What do you mean?
Well, me and him were talking about things you should never hoover up.
Right.
As in things that can knacker up your hoover, especially... a Henry, because he's got a Henry like me. See, we're both Henry Hoover lovers. Have you got a Henry?
No, I ended up because I've got a bad back. I ended up getting a cordless one, a battery-powered vacuum cleaner. It's amazing. It's changed my life.
What's the brand? What's the brand name?
I think the brand name is just a Hoover, but it was quite expensive when I got it.
Ooh.
But it comes with a spare battery, and it's brilliant. It's changed my life. You don't have to fanny about unplugging the blinking cable all the time. It's just battery. It's brilliant.
Well, I got a Henry on the strength of I was talking to him about him having a Henry because he's got a Henry, and there's all different types of Henry. There's a Henrietta, there's a Henry, there's a Harry, I think. There's a pink one, there's a green one. Anyway, there's a wet and a dry one, which I can't remember what that's called now.
Right.
Colin or something. And you can hoover up liquids with that one.
Oh, right.
But you can't hoover up liquids with the regular red Henry. Well, I'll digress. You can hoover up liquids with that red Henry, but then it won't work after you've done that. So,
right.
He found out the hard way by hoovering up a raw egg.
What happened?
Well, he was making a cake, and he accidentally dropped an egg on the floor in the kitchen. And I think it was quite you know this the story about cat's cake. That's my wife. My wife makes cakes occasionally, but doesn't have a very good track record of making cakes. So we needed a cake for a friend, something her friend did. So Barry said he would be able to get us a cake. Anyway, he was making a cake, believe it or not, and only him. So he dropped a raw egg on the floor in the kitchen, right? So that's funny enough. And then rather than, he was doing something else, and it's just easier, the Hoover was there, so he hoovered it up with the Hoover, right? So he forgot about it.
Oh no.
If you are going to hoover up a raw egg or any liquid in a Hoover that doesn't normally hoover up liquid, you can kind of get away with it if you empty it out quick and then get rid of it. But he didn't. He forgot about the egg in the Hoover.
Was there a strange fug coming out from the cupboard under the stairs,
Mate,
wafting down his...
It doesn't smell until you switch it on again. And if you're one of these people that only does your hoovering about once every 4 weeks, like he is, the next time he switched on the Hoover, he'd forgotten about the raw egg that was in it.
So did his whole house smell of egg like 40 minutes later?
He said it is the worst smell he'd ever smelt. And about 3 weeks ago, at the end of his road, this drain blocked up, right, at the end of it. Now, the thing is, his garden drain, his garden drain kept backing up. And he's like me, he's got the drain cover on for drain cover. He's got drain cover for when something happens to your drains, some bloke comes around and unblocks it. So some bloke came round.
You mean insurance cover?
Yeah.
Right.
So some bloke came round and told him that it wasn't his drain he wasn't the reason the drain was blocking up. It was the main drain. And the way he found that out was next door, they make a lot of exotic food in that house. I'll tell you now, some of the smells that come out of there. If you rodded the drain on his side of the garden, their drain and their side went up and down. So that means the whole system's blocked, right? So they have to get the water people up to unblock the entire drain. And it was blocked. And he said the smell when they unblocked the drain at the end of the street was enough to fug out the entire road. But it wasn't as bad as when he switched on the Hoover when it had a raw egg inside it that had been in there for 4 weeks. I'm surprised he didn't pass out, and then you just woke up 5 hours later with a Hoover still going, with this egg fug going around his entire house.
Egg.
So, for this episode's Roger the Horace's album review, I've gone all out to try and get a positive result this time. So I've sent you one of my all-time favourite albums. And it's by an artist who I consider to be a musical genius. One of my favourite artists who's been fascinating and moving me with her music for decades. And that is the artist Björk. She is incredible. And the album I've chosen is my favourite record by her fourth opus called Vespertine. She wrote all of it. She co-produced it. She wrote all the lyrics. The way she composes song structure, arrangement, and her melody composition is mind-blowing to me. I don't understand how she can be so prolific with her melodies, which are beautiful and staggeringly moving at times. And I'm just going to quote a small part direct from the wiki on this album. Björk composed arrangements with instruments including the harp, the celesta, clavichord, strings, and custom music boxes. She also created microbeats from various commonplace sounds, such as that of shuffling cards and ice being cracked. Man, I could talk about Björk for an entire episode of this podcast, but I shall just leave her musical genius right there, I think, because I don't need to, because it expresses itself by disclosing its own nature. So without further ado, It's now time for...
Roger the Horace's album review.
So my only question to you, really, Horace, is what did you make of it?
It sounds like a wheezing asthmatic with a collapsed lung trying to blow up a balloon with one nostril.
You've been listening to Backstage Pass with myself, James Maverick, and Rob Newson, a.k.a. Roger the Horace. If you want to get in touch with us lemons or ask us a question to discuss on the show, please get in touch via Instagram by using our handle, which is @BSPpod, or by sending us a direct email to bsppod@protonmail.com. This podcast is brought to you by Maverick Audio and produced by me. If you'd like your podcast or any other production produced, then visit my website at www.maverickaudio.co.uk and message me via the contact form. Please leave us a review, share our Cretinous pod, and remember to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for listening. Until the next time.
What do you call a woman who sets her electricity bill on fire?
Dunno.
Bernadette.
Rubbish!